Welcome back to Money Matters. We wanted to bring this, the topic about the economy, growth, et cetera, sort of more to a local level. And one of the things that we discuss, of course, because real estate is so local and because real estate drives so much of our economy, is the impact of the economic growth, et cetera, markets on local real estate. And interestingly, just sort of leading into this, I received an email from a fund manager. We get a lot of sales materials at my office from people that are trying to promote different investments. And one that I received yesterday that was really interesting was crowdfunding for real estate development projects. Mm-hmm. So in this sort of slow growth, sideways growth, but very low interest rate driven economy, ways to get into different types of investments. I mean, obviously crowdfunding, for those of you familiar with that, is sort of like micro-lending in a way. It's where you and I could each put in $100, $1,000, $50 and participate in this investment with that, in a private-based investment with smaller dollars. So it's based on that sort of momentum. So interesting to see that it's not just, obviously there's lots of real estate investments and REITs and that type of thing, but this was crowdfunding for real estate development projects in portfolios. It was amazing. It was very interesting to look at it. You could buy in as part of the crowd, or you could actually buy in after the fact and buy out some of the investors. So you can see that there's a lot of creative finance going on in this kind of a market, trying to find ways to generate yield, generate gain, take advantage of low interest rates. And it's certainly, are you seeing more creative financing around here? I know you probably see it all.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things that is beginning to impact the real estate market is that banks are desperate for loans.
Mm-hmm.
They're desperate to be back in the market lending money.
And yet they're not really lending that much. They might be desperate for it, but they're not going to go below a certain level.
There it is.
Yeah.
But what you're going to see more and more of is we see in our local economy banks who are pulling in equity lines of credit that were extended 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. With the left hand, but with the right hand sending out thousands of notices to new clients asking, would you like an equity line of credit?
Right.
So internally, the bank isn't giving clear signals, and this is in not one bank, but bank after bank after bank that we see in the local market, sending very mixed signals about what they want and what they want their portfolio to look like. Mm-hmm. In the construction sector locally, construction loans, lot loans, construction loans, there are 18 or 19 players competing for a new home build at Hampton Lake or a new home build in Hilton Head Lakes or a new home build in Palmetto Bluff. 18 or 19 lenders.
Wow.
All saying, I've got a piece of construction money for you, wouldn't you like to deal with me? It's all the same money, essentially.
Big change from 8 years ago.
Big change. Amongst mortgage lenders, I would like to think that we're the best of the bunch.
Of course.
Of course I'd like to think that, and I do believe that we are, but the issue is that there's plenty of mortgage money, and the mortgage money is highly, highly competitive. It still lurks just below 4%. 3.99% is where it would be today.
Not to dive too much into a different area, but it does seem that the yield curve is definitely continuing to gradually, little bit by little bit, flatten.
It's flattening. What that means is that short money, money that is fixed for 5 years, is at about 3.25%, 3 3/8%. Long-term money that's fixed for 30 years is only 3.99%. So it's a very flat, it's a very gradual rise.
But it seems like it's becoming even a little bit more.
That's absolutely.
Is it true,
correct.
Or is that not true?
No, it's absolutely true. Every day almost, I have a conversation with at least 1 or 2 clients about what to choose on this curve. If you're 75 years old and in good health, and you need a stable mortgage, you need to choose a stable mortgage for the next phase of your life. Will you choose a 10-year mortgage that gets you to 85, an ARM that's a 30-year mortgage, but it's fixed for 10 years, which would be a reasonable bet. Why would you think that you're going to be in your complicated house in Hilton Head Plantation or Sea Pines for longer than another 10 years? Or will you take a 30-year mortgage, which is certainly going to outlast you? Well, probably, since the premium that you have to pay for the 30-year money is so small,
You'll probably take the 30-year.
you'll probably take the 30-year.
Right. Plus, there's a lot
which
more.
is an interesting.
Well, I know that with a lot of my clients, when we're looking at that long term, most people do want to at least try to stay in their home.
That's
depending on, especially if it is a one-story home, if it's manageable size, et cetera. If they have kids around, they want to stay in their home as opposed to moving into an assisted living facility, which we have in abundance here.
That's
Certainly,
right.
there's lots of options.
But one of the other a couple of other interesting things that are happening that bears on that decision is that with the Dodd-Frank legislation, which is this massive piece of financial regulatory legislation that came in after the crash, the great crash of 2008, one little bit of it has to do with the sustainability of mortgages by people who inherit property. If you inherit mom and dad's property, you get to keep the mortgage now. Even though you're not on the mortgage, even though you have nothing to do with the mortgage, as long as you keep paying it, the bank is obligated to honor the mortgage, in spite of the fact that you have nothing to do with it. Conversely, if you don't want to maintain the mortgage, you can walk away. It's not, even though you inherited the property,
Right.
You can take your time, sell the property over the next year, have late payments. Those are on your dead mom or dead dad.
Estate, right.
They're on the estate. It's very interesting that someone who's 75 strategically may well always choose the 30-year mortgage at this point, because if one of the heirs wants to keep the house, they've got a mortgage in place.
Well, the other, I'm not seeing
It's
as
very
much.
interesting.
It is. It's just a human study. It's not really even a finance study. It's a human study. And another one, I used to get a lot more questions about reverse mortgages a couple years ago. Back when they were really, really cheap, we'd get some cheap in terms of the fees that are associated with them. And we don't work with them that much, but I do know who to refer to when people are looking at reverse mortgages, and I used to get a lot more questions. Now you see fewer and fewer people that actually have enough equity in their house in order to even consider it.
That's
so
right.
with a reverse mortgage, you have to be over 62 to be eligible, and the mortgage will actually, a reverse mortgage will basically either take over your previous mortgage if it's under a certain amount, or it would be a cash out mortgage, and you'd basically be putting a mortgage on your house that you can then strip the cash out simply to use for your well-being.
I did a reverse mortgage this week.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
within Mortgage Network. And it's a very interesting situation. The person, because of
And it enables people to stay in their house, which is one of the
person's
drivers.
restructuring their life, and they've just sold their business, and there's a very, very valuable piece of real estate, and they have a small $130,000 mortgage. But what they really need in order for all the pieces of their life to work out over the next couple of years is an extra $100,000 cash. So without going into all the details of their life, we were able, they're only 63, the house is worth about $600,000. We were able to set up in no time flat a mortgage that would pay off the 133, give them an extra $100,000 cash, so now they have a $233,000 mortgage with no payment.
So is that in
whatsoever.
lieu of a cash out refinance?
They couldn't cash out refinance because they have no income. They have no income at
all
all.
the puzzle pieces. It's amazing how all the puzzle pieces fit together.
And it was just a fascinating study in one of the really hundreds of ways that people have to strategically get their lives together at age 65, at age 70, at age 75, as you try to do this.
All the more important, and not to sound like a broken record, but all the more important than to start that much earlier, which you don't think about these things when you're 35, 40, 45 maybe, 50 once you're paying for your kids in college. You're still not necessarily putting all those, but it's so much more important. I know when I talk with younger clients, which there really are fewer and fewer people that actually are younger and ask for advice from a financial planning standpoint, but I so enjoy talking with them because there are little things that we can put in place now that with the, continuing to contribute to these different little pockets of funds, over time, when you actually do get to that point, your life will be that much easier. But of course, the rest of life gets in the way.
Absolutely.
But
full of surprises. There are lots of tools at the moment for problem solving. That's the good news. Life throws up endlessly complicated situations. What you need to do is not panic, but you need to come and talk to somebody. I may not have all the answers, and I may lateral pass to Emily, and Emily may lateral pass to the next person, but we're always part of a group of professionals who can help you to solve the problem.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us this week. Please come back next week for more Money Matters. Have a wonderful week.